I'm really excited about this panel because we're going to dig into some of the ideas that we've talked about in the morning. The panel is called The Smart, Savvy, Cynical Customer. Do Businesses Stand a Chance? And I'm excited to have the panel. What we're going to do is sort of a television talk show format. I'll invite each of them up. We'll have a little chat with each. And then I want to make sure that at the end we have time for you to ask your questions, either using the handheld microphones here in the audience. And I'm also going to be taking some questions from Twitter. So remember, if you want to do a Twitter question, use the hashtag, which is LWCONF. Loyalty World Conference, LWCONF, and then we can get your questions that way. So this question about the smart, savvy, cynical customer is a really interesting one, particularly as it relates to what's going on today in the marketplace. So I live in Boston. My daughter lives in New York City. She's going to university in New York City. And we had this terrible hurricane, Hurricane Sandy, that barreled up the East Coast last Monday. And I mean, it was devastating. I'm sure you've read or seen about what happened. I think about 100 people so far have lost their lives. There's still many, many people without power. Just a really devastating natural disaster. And it was fascinating to see how organizations engaged with their customers or not, and how they did it and what they did. I received emails in near real time from my telecommunications provider, Verizon. It told me how my device, the battery power worked. And it was 8 hours, and after 8 hours it's not going to work. I mean, it was a very helpful email that they sent me. I was looking around to see other organizations that did things that were interesting related to the Hurricane Sandy. Sears, big store, Sears sent out a Twitter update, a tweet, telling people where they could buy generators for emergency power, which was, I think, interesting and it was helpful. Another fascinating example of an organization that did a terrific job around this with their customers and non-customers was Duracell, battery manufacturer. They set up charging stations for mobile phones and iPads and other mobile devices in hard-hit areas where power was out so people could charge their iPhones and their iPads and their other mobile devices. Brilliant stuff. Now, when an organization does it well, people share that, and then the media picks up on it. So Duracell got huge points as a result of this with their customers. I mean, talk about building loyalty. They're parked outside so I can charge my iPhone. And then you've got the organizations that just completely screwed it up. I mean, just outrageously wrong and destroyed some of the loyalty that they've built over the years. InStyle magazine sent out an email to some of their, to their subscribers. Hurricane Sandy, have you got stuck inside, ? Here's 5 beauty treatments to help ride out the storm. My God, people are dying, and they're sending out beauty treatment advice. American Apparel, clothing manufacturer, 20% off, they tweeted, sale to people who are in the U.S. East Coast, and they had a list of states that could get 20% off. The wrath that the market sent to these organizations that did this kind of thing was just outrageous. So we've got these smart, savvy, and cynical customers. And I'd love to begin talking with our guests about this. The first guest I'd like to invite up is Nicola Millard. She's with BT. She has this fantastic title. She's a futurologist. I hope I said that properly. Pleasure to meet you. It's to see you. Have a seat. And you come at it partly from an academic background. You are Dr. Millard, so I feel like I'm honored to be sitting next to someone with these credentials. The first question I'd like to ask, and I'm actually going to ask all 3 panelists the same first question, is why is the customer today fundamentally different than the customer of 10 years ago?
Well, hello, everybody. Now, that's a great question, and I always say I am a futurologist, but my crystal ball is broken. So in actual fact, a lot of the work that I do is really trying to track trends. And actually in BT, one of the things that we've been doing over the years is customer surveys, simply asking customers what their lives are like, how they want to interact with businesses. So actually over the past maybe 8 years, we've done a survey every year, and it's really quite fascinating to see the changes in human behaviours year by year. So we actually have a survey out at the moment called the autonomous customer.
The autonomous customer.
The autonomous customer.
Aha, okay.
What that is telling us is, well, there's a number of things. So firstly, we've got a lot more choice than we've ever had before as customers. We've also, courtesy of the internet, got a lot more transparency. And I think that's become evident over the past 4 years that that's happened. So we can see a lot more, we can compare products more, we can see content that's both official and unofficial.
Right.
And I always say that there's one very critical piece of software that hasn't been updated recently. It is unfortunately my brain. So my poor brain it's got a lot of choice. It's got a lot of information. And at the moment, because of the economic conditions, this is a really interesting one, that behaviour is becoming very risk averse at the moment. So we have customers really doing their homework. And I always say with my brain, it's got too much choice, it's got risk, it doesn't like it. It reverts to a real basic human condition, which is around advice seeking. And over the past 5 or 6 years, we've seen very big advice seeking behaviours from customers, particularly on slightly riskier purchases. But I always say we're seeking advice in a different way.
So how do people seek advice? I mean, there's face-to-face, there's verbal, there's Facebook, Twitter, that sorts of things. How are you seeing it?
Well, I always said that you always used to ask friends and family. Now, of course, the first port of call for most connected customers is Google.
Yeah.
So we use a search engine for advice. And the interesting thing about search engines is that typically for most major brands, you will get official content. But you'll also get a lot of unofficial content, which is why social sometimes gets a bit magnified in a Google search.
Say it again, magnified?
Magnified.
Oh, I thought you said, I'm sorry. I thought I got a new term there.
No, it's my strange English accent. That's one of the reasons why I keep saying social media is very visible. It's not necessarily, it's very trendy to talk about at the moment, but it's not necessarily what customers solely depend upon.
Okay, so I do a Google search. I'm searching for, I don't know, a new telecommunications provider, whatever it might be. Now, I've got all these different things that pop up. What should be popping up from a company? I mean, there's going to be official information, but what about an employee of the company's Twitter feed? I mean, what should be the right things that pop up?
Well, do you know, I mean, for any major brand, hopefully it's your official site that comes up top, we hope. The other thing is that typically the content for social, it's generally around forums rather than Twitter.
Okay.
Unless something has gone horrendously viral, in which case it's more likely to appear on a news site than anything else. I always say there's a lot of hype about Twitter and Facebook, but in actual fact, Facebook is almost impossible to search unless you've got your security settings wrong. And Twitter basically it's so transitory, and unless it has gone viral, it doesn't come up in a Google search. Typically. So it's a lot of the social content is on forums which are neither new or sexy, but do stick around for a while. So we've got to pay attention to forums, not necessarily just the trendy things like Twitter and Facebook.
Right. What's interesting to me as I travel around and talk to people who work particularly in large companies, is that so many employees of large companies tell me that they have restrictions on using social networks at work. Many companies outright ban Facebook for employees. I mean, why would we let people use Facebook? They're going to waste time. So what are you seeing? My anecdotal, I'm not doing this in any scientific way, my anecdotal information tells me 25% of big companies block employees from using Facebook at work around the world. What are you seeing in terms of that, and is that the right thing to do?
Well, we've got a piece of work at the moment around the future of work, and I keep going in, I call it the death of Dr. No. That if you say no, employees quite often do it anyway. So it's much better to say yes, because at that point you can monitor what they're doing. And also we've all got devices in the back of our pockets.
And we've got toilets to go into and lock the loo door and tweet away and Facebook away.
I know, and the other thing is, how dare people talk at work? I mean, why on
I
earth
know.
would they do that? I keep saying work is social, and actually social media can be incredibly useful for work. The thing is, we did a study earlier on this year called The Social Customer, and one of the intriguing things that we found about that was, particularly on forums, because a lot of them are anonymous, about big brands, employees were complaining about working for those brands. And I said, well, firstly, it's anonymous, you can't identify who those people are. But wouldn't you prefer them doing that maybe on an internal social network?
Right.
So that those concerns could be voiced. So I think, firstly, it's around having a policy around what employees do. But the second thing is, give them a voice because they want a voice. So give them some mechanism, whether that be a closed social network or an open social network. Probably closed initially, because you might not want social is about dirty laundry in public.
Yeah.
That's my anxiety.
And
about
even closed networks, it's likely things will get out because people talk. They go home or they go virtual home and put it up onto their private Facebook or whatever. It happens.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly having a policy about that. But we've done that for years. I mean, it's just we have a different mechanism to do it. I'm a psychologist, and the fascinating thing about technology is it changes our behaviours, but it actually enables us to do a lot of the things that we've done in our lives anyway. So we go down to the pub and talk about things. Yeah. It's just that now that we can monitor it, it's part of big data.
Right.
We can start to use it. And the other thing, particularly about Twitter, is it's like a big chocolate box for journalists.
Nice.
So, and that magnifies voices.
So. These are wonderful sound bites. Big chocolate box for a journalist. I hope we're capturing it on Twitter so I can go back and remember it and
so the journalists
retweet
get
it. Yeah, exactly. So the journalists get it. So I engage with lots of different companies. And I'm like you, we were talking earlier, I travel all over the world. I'm always away from home. And why is it that so many organizations insist on communicating with me in a particular time period and through a particular mechanism? And when are we going to get to the point where I can choose what channel, whether it be IM or email or Facebook or whatever, and in what way I communicate with the companies I want to do business with?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big one because the research I've just finished has shown that we all have very different channel choices. We're all different. I mean, there's a lot of hype at the moment about Generation Y.
Yeah. Which is what?
Which
age?
tends to be under 24.
Okay.
So particularly email is an interesting one with them,
Yeah.
because generally if you ask a 14-year-old about email, generally the reaction is rolling the eyes and go, well, that's so last year.
Yeah.
Why would you want to use email? Come on.
I asked my teenage daughter, she's now 19, but she's 17 at the time, and she had 3 friends in the back of the car. I'm driving, and I love, they're my focus group, so I'm driving and say, so hey guys, how do you guys use email? Dead silence, right? 3 17-year-old girls, dead silence. Finally, one girl picks up, well, when I have to send an email, when I have to send a thank you note to one of my friend's parents, I use email. It's like, oh boy. And now this is the way that so many businesses insist on communicating, is through email.
I think that email... The interesting thing about email is we've also done, I think the over 50s are behaving just as weirdly as the under 24s, because we asked the over 50s about their communication preferences, and do you know, email comes number 1. They're the kind of people that often sit at their desk and email the person sitting opposite them because they love email so much. Now, the thing is, we all have different preferences, and I keep saying that potentially there's a generation gap at the moment opening up, where you've got the over 50s liking email and the phone, you've got the under 24s predominantly liking instant messaging and social. So the thing with that is, how do you close that generation gap? And certainly in terms of, so both internally and externally, how do you start to communicate using a raft of tools? And sometimes the other thing is, our autonomous customer survey said that 65% of customers jump around channels. So we're not just one channel people anymore. We're jumping around because actually as customers, we tend to be very goal directed. So we'll use any channel that we think will get us to our goal, and if it's not getting us to our goal, we'll switch. Yeah. But bizarrely, and I often get asked, well, you're a telecoms company, you would say this anyway, but actually the primary preference across the board and across countries, because our survey is global, the preference, particularly for customers that have a problem, or having difficulties with the customer service, they still lift the phone up.
Yeah.
It's only when the phone or maybe email fails, that's the point they go onto social media.
Okay.
Because it's
That's
a secondary
interesting.
channel rather
Interesting.
than a primary one.
Yeah, or when they want to bitch. That's when a lot of
Completely.
people go to social media, because I know if I tweet something, they'll see it, and then they'll go and they'll see, oh, this guy, we should probably follow this. We can follow up on this one.
Yeah.
So my last question for you, well, there'll be other questions from the audience, but this is Loyalty World. If we were here 5 years from now, what would be the major topic? What would everyone be buzzing about at Loyalty World?
Well, anyone who's seen me at loyalty conferences before has known that I actually have a big problem with the word loyalty, because I don't think that we are loyal in any sense to companies. We're loyal to friends, we're loyal to families, we cannot necessarily be loyal to companies. So I think that the big challenge is redefining loyalty, in my opinion, because loyalty to a lot of people is a scheme or a card, and I think we're all probably guilty of having all the cards in our wallet.
Yeah.
Am I loyal to everyone I have a card for? Probably not. So one of the things I would like us to do is to redefine loyalty. And a lot of the data that we're getting at the moment, particularly when you hand a customer a smartphone, it's been mentioned already around, how do you start to use that data? Because in actual fact, when customers allow you to use their data, they want something back. I call it the WIFMs. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
If I give you data, what are you going to do for me? And the other thing about loyalty is it's far more highly correlated with effort or ease of use than it is with satisfaction. So I think the big thing, the opportunity in loyalty at the moment is how do we use big data to make it easier for customers to come back to us? Because what we're finding is 46% of autonomous customers are saying they're not loyal anymore, but 83% are saying, I will come back to you if you make it easy for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge for the future. We've got big data.
Yeah.
We've got devices that give
Yeah.
us big data.
Yeah.
How do we as organizations make it easier
And
for
maybe we
customers?
change the name of Loyalty World to another name.
Please do.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, my
Thank you.
next guest is Anthony Thomson. He's the co-founder and the and the chairman of Metrobank. One of it's the first financial institution started in the last 100 years in the UK. Welcome, Anthony. Have a seat. Pleasure to see you.
Hi.
Excellent. Okay, so the same question I will.
Can I just say good morning to everyone?
Of course, please. Say
Good morning.
Good morning. Same question I asked Nicola, the first question. Why is the customer today fundamentally different than a customer 10 years ago?
Well, I think that's the wrong question. 'Cause
Okay.
I don't think they are different. I remember when I was 16, I thought I was...
Last year.
That'd be nice. I'm one of those weird over 50s that Nicola's referring to. I remember when I was 16, thinking I was the first person ever to discover sex. And you look at your parents, you think, they cannot have had sex. I remember thinking, 30-year-olds having sex, this is awful. Every generation thinks that they are new and different. But to Nicola's point, psychologically, I think we're all exactly the same. The channels that we use, the sources of information are changing, but the primary motivations as us as human beings aren't changing.
Yeah. So given that, one of the things that's always fascinating to me as I travel around are the sort of highly regulated industries, things like your business, financial institutions, healthcare, pharmaceuticals come to mind as three. People always say, oh gosh, we can't engage, we can't communicate, we're not allowed to be on Twitter, we're not allowed to engage with customers through these online channels because our business is regulated. So what would you say to that, and how can we deal with it?
I guess there are two is that. Firstly, I think the mistake most financial services businesses make is to think that they're financial services businesses. So when we started Metrobank, we thought of ourselves as a retailer that just happened to be retailing financial services products.
Yeah.
So when we built the business, I sat in on all the IT meetings, all the operational meetings. Now, I'm not an IT or an operational specialist. But I'd say to my colleagues, why are we doing this? Are we doing this because it's more operationally efficient for the bank, or because it's going to give a better customer experience? And if the answer is not the latter, we need to be looking again at what we're doing. And I think far too many financial services companies think that they are in business to make money. They have forgotten that making a profit is a byproduct of doing something well for the customer. So it's about giving the customer a better product, a better experience, a better service, the net result of which is, if you do it well, you make a profit. And a lot of financial services businesses have forgotten this. They think they're just in business to make money. They've forgotten about the customer.
That's interesting. So when you were thinking about the business, and which led you to things like very long hours in the local shops and you know, being nice to dogs and all those other great stuff, who did you study? I mean, I guess you wouldn't have studied Barclays and Lloyds and those guys. You would have studied maybe what other types of retailers were
doing. Yeah, you look at the great retailers. I think here in the UK, John Lewis is a fantastic example. They have this great relationship with their customers. They're not necessarily the cheapest provider of products, but in the mind of customers, they offer the best value. And again, to pick up on Nicola's point, I think value is an amalgam of many things to people. It's not just about price. Banks think it's just about rate, it's just about price. It's not, it's about an amalgam of many things. So service, convenience, transparency, treating your existing customers as well as you treat new customers. I mean, it astonishes me that business will offer better deals to new customers than they will offer to their existing customers. I mean, that's madness. It's got to be madness. So value is a series of different things to different people. And our role is to ensure that we offer what is good value to people. Transparency, clarity, same deal for existing customers, service, convenience, and price has a part to play. But I would argue it's a very small part.
So given that, I spoke with a couple of at least one of your clients and some of the people who were kicking the tires, who are clients of your competitors, and people said, yeah, they have a good reputation for the retail shops, but I don't know about their online. It's not quite up to snuff, and that's what I was told. So how about the experience, and how about delivering the incredible experience? How can you make the in-person retail be equivalent to the online experience?
I think it's very hard, and I think it would be a fair criticism to say that our online experience is not as good as it will be. There's still work to do there. But in the banking business, which is where I've been for the last few years, when we opened Metrobank on the 29th of July 2010, we had no customers. We were a new business. We have no customers. So you could argue we are in the customer acquisition business. We know from the Office of Fair Trading that 9 out of 10 people want to open an account in a physical location. So you make the branches, or stores as we call them, a priority, because that's where people are going to open accounts. That's where you can give them a great experience. And I think one of the key differences between us and the other banks is, I believe absolutely you put the customer at the center of everything that you do. Other banks will say this. Some even have charters to that effect. But the reality is you walk in, the person you see behind the counter, the person who greets you, has a sales target, and about a third of their income is based upon commission, based upon selling you something. So, I'm from Newcastle. I see things in black and white. So if you, sorry, it's terrible, I know. If you incentivize people with sales targets, you reward them for hitting sales targets and penalize them for not hitting sales targets, I think there's a fair chance they're going to sell something. And I think that's fundamentally at odds with giving great customer service. So every one of my colleagues in Metrobank has one target and one target only, which is customer satisfaction. And that's what they are paid for, not for selling anybody anything.
Okay, my last question is, we're at Loyalty World. You're the co-founder and we're the chairman of Metrobank. So tell me about the fact that I read you're going to be leaving Metrobank, and what about your personal loyalty to the brand you started?
So for those of you who don't know, so I stepped down as chairman in September, and I'm going to be leaving the bank, which I co-founded 5.5 years ago, at the end of the year, because I'm going to set up a new business.
That business would be?
That business is going to be new. And different,
it would be what kind?
And customer-centric, and in financial services. But what I would say, apropos of Metrobank...
I'm trying to have some real-time news breaking here on the stage at Royalty World.
I've been worked over by experts. You're not getting that out of me.
Thanks a lot. I'm not an expert.
No, you're very good. But as far as Metrobank goes, I'm absolutely 100% committed to Metrobank. I remain committed to Metrobank. When it IPOs in 2014, I'm a reasonably significant shareholder in the bank. I will not be selling a share. I fundamentally believe in it as a business model, but there are other business models.
Great, thanks so much. Again, think of the questions that we want to ask the team once we finish. So next up is Chris Bull. He's the CEO of McBride PLC. Chris, welcome. Very, very interesting business. It's probably one of the bigger businesses that you may not have heard of. It's a leading provider of, hey, welcome, have a seat. Leading provider of store brand products and private label products. That we probably all use every day. So again, my favorite question to lead off is, why is the customer today fundamentally different from the customer 10 years ago? We heard a couple of different fun answers, and we're encouraging you to have an equally fun answer, Chris.
Okay. Well, I think on the first basic level, I'd agree with Anthony. There's not a fundamental difference. When I look at, for example, the most savvy customer that I know is actually probably my 75-year-old mother. She's probably seen every trick in the retail book, and her guard is never down. But what's different is she's much more connected these days. She's much more informed. So I think that's a particular point. But there is something specific which I think is fair to say which is happening in society and certainly Europe, where our business operates, including the UK. And that's the value-conscious effect that is really driving shopping behavior. The IGD do a lot of research with shoppers, and they publish some data. They've described something which I think is very effective. They call it the development of the forensic shopper. And their data is saying that actually 44% of shoppers are saying that they are spending more time in selecting their groceries today, as opposed to 3% spending less time.
That's interesting.
So people putting a lot more effort into really finding value and trying to find the best choices. So I think that is something that really is happening and has been kicking in for the last few years since we've been facing more difficult times.
Wow, interesting. So, wow, the theme of big data coming through in all of you guys, and it was a theme of the beginning too. So I'm really curious about you and how you look at your customer, because the products that you're creating are branded by the stores that are selling those products. So is your customer the end consumer? Is your customer the people at the store who make the choice of what to buy? I mean, it's a sort of a convoluted kind of marketplace you live in. Tell me about who you think of as your customer and how you develop loyalty for those people.
Very simply both. I mean, our primary customers that we actually sell to and work with are the retailers. And we actually supply 49 out of the top 50 retailers across Europe.
Damn it, where's that 50th?
I'm not going to mention them yet. They're a little specific national player who have an approach of not being supplied by international players such as ourselves,
okay.
Not in the UK. But our approach with them, with those retailers then, is to very much act in, try and work in partnership with them to develop their brand. We are working with them. We need to understand their strategy to support their brand. But that's meaningless if someone doesn't actually buy the product off the shelf at the end. Right. That's where the ultimate transaction takes place. So we work very closely with our retailer customers, but do a lot of work ourselves around categories and shoppers to understand what is going to be most effective on shelf. So
will you actually do things like meet with consumers, have focus groups, do things like that? So you're dealing with consumers themselves as well as working with the
absolutely.
stores,
We need to absolutely understand consumers, what they want. We need to understand which products are going to be most effective. And then we need to marry that with the specific retailer's own brand strategy to get the best solution for them.
So here's an interesting thing I'm thinking about with again, we're at Loyalty World. And the idea is that, at least my behavior and my wife's behavior, is that when we go into our local store, we shop at Whole Foods in the Boston area. We shop at Stop and Shop in the Boston area. We'll look at the store brands, and they're usually less expensive. I'm always less expensive, and we might buy on price. But then it's interesting that we might go back. And I'm wondering what your research has shown on the loyalty effect of people who have purchased something that originally was a lower price. Are they going to go to anything that's cheaper, or are you able to build loyalty on a brand that was originally bought because it was cheaper?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting to see is how the dynamics of how people turn to private label when times are tough. Actually, they don't do it straight away necessarily. What typically happens is they'll hunt around with their existing brands for promotions.
Okay.
And they'll do that for some time.
So like newspaper things and...
Whatever promotional activity
Okay.
there is. But what we're seeing now is that when recession is there for some time, as it has been with us, people then start to think, hang on, this is not going to go away anytime soon. I will try the retailer's own brand, whichever the retailer it is, and I'll just have a go with it. And then what's very interesting is that then typically, because it does what it says on the bottle, it lives up to the promise, they'll stick with it. And then when times get a little bit better and they have a little bit of discretionary money, what we find is that they don't then slavishly go back to their old brands, but rather they stay with the retailer's brand and use that discretionary money on something else.
Wow, it's a very, very interesting aspect of loyalty, isn't it? I mean, so you could write a whole book on that, I think. Great, thank you so much. Okay, I'd love to have people submit questions through Twitter or ask a question here using the microphone. I'm looking. I'm not seeing anything yet. Is there any hands in the air, Oliver? Feel free to direct it directly to any of the individuals on the panel or just as a general question.
Hi, it's Peter from Orange. One for Anthony. Very excited to hear where you're moving on to, Anthony, so good luck with your new venture. But you were talking last time about moving from satisfaction to net promoter. Did you get the chance to get any further with that as you were at, 94% satisfaction? So what happened after that?
Yeah, Peter and I have had a bit of a conversation about this before. Within Metrobank, we've got 94% of our customers say they are satisfied or very satisfied with us. And that leads to 83% of them saying that they would recommend us to a friend. And that customer advocacy is very, very important to us. We don't have a lot of money to spend on advertising. So the fact that 1 out of 2 customers who come to us is coming through recommendation is really very, very valuable to us. In terms of the way we measure customer satisfaction, we do several things. We're introducing Net Promoter Score, which I think is more about culture than a means of keeping score. But the real valuable things for us are around mystery shopping. We mystery shop every store every other day. We have panels of consumers who mystery shop, our customers who mystery shop us on our behalf. We analyse root cause analysis on complaints. But probably the most important thing, the most valuable thing, is just sitting in the store or sitting in the contact centre with a pair of headphones on, just listening to the lives of real customers. And I think I get both myself, my colleagues, I encourage our non-executive directors to do this, just to sit in the contact centre, put on headphones, and listen to what the lives of real customers are really like.
I'm not seeing any questions through Twitter. This is disturbing to me. How about any other questions from the audience?
Can I just add to what
I would,
Anthony just
or
said?
you can ask him a question
No,
or
no,
add
no,
what he
I-
has said.
I could. No, I was just... a lot of the stuff we're seeing on big data at the moment tends to be that, hey, let's mine social media. Anthony's right. I mean, but actually the best thing you can do is firstly ask your frontline people about products and services, they don't get asked enough. Go into your branches, go and see what emails are going on, go and listen to calls coming in. That's big data as well, and actually that stuff can be really valuable, and it gets, I have to say, social media it's so hyped at the moment. It's not the be-all and end-all. There's a lot of data you can use, but the thing is, you not only have, CRM tried to do this a while back, we got lots of data about customers and then never did anything with it. So I think the opportunity now, because we've got much, much better analytics than we used to have, we have to know the right questions to ask it, but we've got the opportunity to start to understand this incredible data that's coming in every day to all our touch points. And then the hard bit is then change the way you do business, learn from it.
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
about that?
of course.
Of these guys?
Yeah, of course.
So, who does customer profitability analysis? Who does customer profitability analysis? So, am I right to assume who doesn't? Everybody else?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if they're in the right conference. So, I don't like customer profitability analysis at all. I think this idea of looking at somebody and saying, you're a really valuable customer, you're so valuable, and you're not worth anything at all, and treating people on that basis is absolutely crazy. It's just absolutely crazy, because you don't really know the overall full profitability of somebody. And I'll give you a little example. We have a store in Kensington High Street, and a woman walked in and opened an account, and she was not a very, well, I don't know whether she's a wealthy woman or not, but the amount of traffic going through her account wasn't huge, not particularly profitable, I suspect, for us. But we just treat everybody the same. We try and give everybody the same great service. And it turned out that her husband was the finance director for the American Embassy. And she told him what a great experience he had. He came in, he opened an account, and to cut a long story very short, we were invited to pitch for the account for the American Embassy, which I'm pleased to say we won, but that's really irrelevant. My point is that if we decided that she was less profitable and therefore didn't deserve the level of service that somebody else did, we would never have won the American Embassy. I don't think you can actually accurately value customers.
That's interesting. So everybody's treated the same. You don't have tiers. You don't have the special client support people and the regular client support people. You should tell that to Bank of America, who I do business with. They've got the they must have 8 tiers.
My partner in this venture was once asked in a conference like this in America, and he has a little dog called Duffy, which he loves. It's just like a little rat. It's a Yorkshire Terrier. He carries it everywhere. And they said to him, somebody stood up at a conference like this and said, if we asked you to go and fix the retail at City, if we kidnapped your dog and wouldn't give your dog back till you fixed the retail at City, what would you do? And he said, I guess my dog's dead.
Okay, who's got a question from the audience? I see a hand over here. Or is there one over here?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm interested to hear what you were saying about rewarding staff for customer satisfaction as opposed to sales, and how you measure that without really annoying the customers that are satisfied or otherwise.
We get incredible levels of recommendations from our customers, so they will tell us within individual stores. We have no mathematical compensation formula. So there is a bonus which will be applied to a store, but then the store manager, along with the regional manager or regional director, will decide upon your individual performance, which will be based upon your quarterly reviews and the feedback from your colleagues and the feedback from your customers. So it's not as if everybody gets the same mathematical formula. Your reward will be based upon how well we believe you served your customers.
Any other questions? Have you guys got questions for one another? Well, I think we have 5 minutes left.
I'd like to ask Anthony, how do you make it easy for customers to do things like banking, opening accounts? How do you cut through? Because the excuse I get from a lot of banks is, you've got the red tape. How do you make it so easy for your customers when they're actually in branch to do stuff?
So we'll open you an account in 15 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, we do all of the know your customer, the anti-money laundering online. So in real time, it takes about 60 seconds. And within that 15 minutes, we will give you your permanent chip and pin debit card and your permanent chip and pin credit card. So all sounds great because we started with a blank sheet of paper. And we decided at the outset we would have no stupid bank rules. And yet here we are less than 2 years later, we have stupid rules. They just kind of permeate the organization no matter how you try and stop them. So what we say is we will pay you as a customer or any of my colleagues £10 if they can identify a stupid bank rule and we can kill it. So, and this happens, customers will come and say, why do you do that? We go, we do that because, actually, why do we do that? And we look at it and we have stupid rules. When we put our application form together for a commercial loan, if you were a business, it came out at 7 pages. And we sat down, because I'm not a banker, and I went, why do we ask that? And said, well, because everybody asks it. And I go, but why does everybody ask it? We got it down from 7 pages to 3 pages. And I guess we'll probably get it down to 2 pages or 1 in the future. But it is about every day questioning what we do. And I was often asked, what do I do all day as chairman of a bank? And I would say only half jokingly, I walk around trying to prevent my brilliant colleagues turning us into a bank.
Nice, nice. Okay, I'd like to thank the panel very much. Chris, Anthony, Nicola, great panel. I enjoyed it.